Welcome to our Strategy of the Week presentation titled Running the Derby with the Midas Touch. My name is Todd Schaefer. I'm the Manager of Research, and I'll be providing your strategy presentation this evening. Last week, my colleague, Miss Angel Clark, demonstrated a fantastic cherry-picking technique that's catching fire called the Midas Touch, and its associated study called Colt 45. One of the reasons for its success is that it's really easy to do, and it works. If you need help learning the technique, let me refer you to last week's video. It really is excellent. Tonight, however, we want to focus on a variation of the technique that Angel demonstrated. You may remember that this approach works on just about any list of stocks. Well, tonight, we'll explore generating the list with our Derby tool. Let's move into the program. The Derby is an add-on product which requires an additional subscription, but before I lose you, the technique I'm going to show you tonight does not require you subscribe to the Derby tool, but I do think it's helpful to understand what the Derby tool does so we can take advantage of its analysis. If I go to the top toolbar and click on the Derby tab, the Derby tracks the performance of about 185 of our searches every day. And since I'm recording this on Thursday night after the markets close, we have listed here in the Derby the top performing strategies from today because of the sort is overall gain descending. Each of these lines represents a portfolio of stocks generated from running the search the prior evening. And so tonight, late at night after the markets close, the Derby tool will rerun each and every search and build 10 stock portfolios. These portfolios will sit idle in the starting gate until the market's opening bell, where we will start tracking their performance in 2 time frames, both from the prior close and from the market's open. This powerful tool then shows tick-by-tick action and compiles the data into our tote board tool. So we have here one-day results, but using the tote board we can then compile daily results into any custom time frame and using multiple studies. And so subscribers to the Derby tool have this tote board and a whole suite of powerful tools to analyze the performance data in an effort to find the biggest consistent gaining searches. Even if you don't subscribe to the Derby tool, you can still benefit from this analysis because every night we report the 1 and 5 day results in the VectorVest views. And so if I click on the Views tab, if I scroll down, there's the list of the highest performing 1-day and 5-day Derby winners. So everybody has access to this data, and that's the data we'll use tonight. The first thing we glean is a confirmation of a trend. I noticed that both the 1-day and the 5-day winners are all bullish searches. This tells us from that perspective of both a 1 and a 5-day basis that we're still in an uptrend. If we start seeing a mix of bullish and bearish searches together, that's indicating to us that the strength of the trend is starting to wobble or transition. For instance, if I look at a market timing graph, and we zoom into a 3-month time frame here for a little more clarity, let's put a date line on it. After we came off this low, say if we had chosen the 7th of February, if I go back to the views on February 7th, we notice we had a mix of bullish and bearish searches. The 5-day trend hadn't yet moved to the upside. Bringing us back to current, we also have a popular technique using this data where we look for a top performing 5-day winner that's still performing well today. While we don't have any matches today, that is a very popular technique called Easy Rider. You can also get a feel for what's working in the market just by looking at the searches. Tonight, we'll use the top 5-day performers as our horses because we've been in this uptrend now for several weeks and we continue to have a bullish outlook. Our process begins by creating a quick folio for each search, just like the Derby tool. So for this next step, if you're lucky enough to have multiple monitors, you can just detach the Views tab and move it over to your second monitor. Or if not, you can write down the list of top performing searches, and we're going to go over to the Unisearch tool. Changing my list of search groups into the alphabetical list, that'll make it a little bit easier. and we'll just create portfolios now using those searches. We'll begin with ballistic new highs. I type B on the keyboard and that will scroll me automatically to that search. I can double click on the search to run it, and here are the top 10 stocks from a fresh run of the search that's been performing well over the past 5 days. And so I'll use my quick folio button to quickly add the top 10, or I could quick folio all since I'm only displaying 10. If I click that button, I get the quick folio wizard, and I'm going to change the name of this to reflect the name of the search. I'm going to purchase the positions long, and I click OK. It's now saved the portfolio, but we'll open it after we've loaded the other 4. Our second search was finding fireworks stocks. So let's jump down to the F's. If I double click finding fireworks stocks, I'll run it. Again, quick folio the top 10. Create the portfolio. Our next search was explosive EPS stocks. Right above that, I double click it to run the search. Our next search was show me the money long. I type S, double click the search to run it. And finally, ka-ching ka-ching. Type the letter K, double click ka-ching ka-ching, and quick folio to the top 10. And now I'm going to select the Open Portfolio Now button, which will take me into the Portfolio Manager. And you can see that I have the 5 portfolios built from tonight's search. Each of the portfolios is populated with the stocks found from the search. And of course you can slice the apple 1,000 different ways, as I like to say, and perhaps if you look at the stocks that are returned from Show Me the Money, maybe you wouldn't really want to trade those stocks because they're all under $5. And so as we scroll through each of these portfolios, we'll notice the stocks in those portfolios, all of them have no gain because they haven't moved yet. And so tomorrow morning we'll start monitoring their performance after the opening bell. But for tonight, my work is done. I can close the program. Tomorrow morning, we'll wait to determine the market's follow-through. Hopefully we'll have a cooperative market tomorrow that'll follow through so we can continue this demonstration. But our next step then will be to determine the best performing portfolio and then cherry pick from those stocks. And good morning, folks. Here we are, and on the next morning, it's now about 10:26 in the morning. The market has been running here for just about an hour, and we can see, looking at the major indices, they're all up today. Although just barely so. The needle of the market timing gauge in the green, we have green lights across the board in the color guard. If I go to the market timing graph, I like to do this for follow-through. Let's look at the market timing graph on an intraday basis. I'll stretch that out to get the open. Here we can see the market did gap up, retraced a little bit, then surged ahead, and is now retracing again. So we have this relatively sideways action. I can spread this out a little bit by pulling that back. And so right at about that 10 o'clock hour, price started to congest a little bit here. We weren't getting higher highs, so you might have held off here a little bit, and now you're in a situation where if we strike a higher low and start taking off again, we'll have to make that decision of whether or not we think that's the recovery for the day, or do you wait to strike a higher high? For the sake of our conversation, though, let's go with this higher market value here at 10 o'clock as an indication that we've seen market follow through and that we think we want to go forward. Of course, we recognize the market can always pull back after we've made our decision to take our positions. It's just at the time we take the positions, we want to be comfortable that the market is rising, is likely to continue to rise, and that the Stocks we're about to trade are continuing to rise. Speaking of those, let's go to our portfolios and see how we're doing. In the Portfolio Manager, here are the portfolios that we loaded last night, and if I click on Ballistic New Highs, these are the stock positions, and we can see we're lower on an end-of-day basis. But let's clean up our graph here a little bit. I can minimize the Genius, and let's change our graph. And ideally, what we'd like to see is we'd like to see this graph equity curve going from bottom left to upper right. And so we're simply going to look for the portfolio that has that graph pattern. Got a little pullback here, but now we've got that nice trend pattern established. Explosive EPS stocks, again, we would be making our decision around this 10 o'clock time frame. So you really can't go with what happened over here. So I see that initial pullback with the market, but we've trended since then. Finding fireworks stocks never did recover. Ka-ching, ka-ching. Starting to recover now, but again at that 10 o'clock time frame, you wouldn't have seen that. Show me the money. Again in that 10 o'clock time frame, it was falling off. So our best graph really was explosive EPS stocks at that 10 o'clock time frame. We were trending upward. So this would have been my choice for the day. And remember, we're not day trading here. We're looking for the best performing portfolio by virtue of its equity curve, and then looking for stocks that are in nice trends by virtue of the Midas touch graph. This is simply another way to find us winning stock trades by virtue of the Derby and finding searches that have been performing in the recent trend. So we're going to right click or left click on the top stock, hold the shift key and left click on the bottom stock. I'll right click and we'll view the stock graph. Here's our standard VectorVest layout. Let's change our graph layout to the Midas touch, and let's shorten our time frame to 3 months. And now we're back to that same graphing technique that Angel showed us last week. AUXL is a candidate. Let's maximize our graph. And we can simply scroll down and look for candidates. As I've played with this technique and gotten better at it, I start to look for things where I have, see this parabolic change in the moving average. The moving average is fairly slow. I like to put on price action when I see that kind of behavior to see if I have some gapping action or some parabolic price action that I want to avoid because I'm worried about some kind of a retracement. RT's falling off, so it's not a candidate. So very quickly I can breeze through and identify those are candidates. Again, I see that curve indicative of a gapping price action. I do have a couple days of follow through here. I might actually today consider picking that up if it continues to trend higher. This one has RT's not hitting a higher high. And so then I have my candidates, and I can do additional passes if I like, if I want to refine this further, make sure maybe my price action is not nearing support or resistance. But if we're trying to keep it simple, if we're trying to find strategies that are performing currently in the current market condition, and we're trying to find stocks that are performing well in that market condition as well, this methodology is just another way to use the power of the VectorVest tools to lead us directly to stocks that are doing what we want them to do. Once I've found the stocks that meet my Colt 45 requirements, I can do as many additional studies as I like. One thing I do like to do is look at the price action on the graph and make sure that I have price that's still rising in the near term. And maybe you'd like to put on the 5-day moving average of RT as we discussed last week. To make sure that the stocks are still building momentum. Maybe you like to look at technical indicators or other studies. You can make this process be as simple or as complicated as you like. If you have any questions about using this technique or the Midas Touch or the Colt 45 in general, we will be holding our usual Q&A webcast on Monday at 2 o'clock. To register for that webcast, simply go to our website and click the Events tab and register there, or type in the address www.VectorVest www.vectorvest.com/events. These sessions are usually very helpful and pretty open-ended, where we'll take just about any questions that you have regarding VectorVest. But this will wrap up our presentation for today. I thank you for being with us, and I hope this demonstration of coupling the power of the VectorVest Derby information with the simplicity of the Midas Touch Colt 45 cherry picking technique has fostered some ideas that you can use in your own personal trading. So until next time, have a great weekend.